Hey, Bad Christian here again, and today we're going to talk about communism. And not what communism is so much as what are the effects of communism and what does that look like in a society, because I think that a lot of people connect communism to this image of a certain country or a certain regime in a certain place. But let's have a look at what the negative effects of communism are and how they possibly could be affecting us without the actual communism in the United States. So it says here that the criticisms of communism focus on the track record of economic and hardship political regression, human rights violations wherever it has been implemented, and while the theoretical ideal it is classless or egalitarian society, the real-world communist regimes have constantly fallen short of these goals. So we need to understand that you don't have to check off every box here in order to fall within the negative effects or the criticisms of which communism has caused in the history of humanity. So let's have a look first of all at the negative economic effects. And one is that you lose this free market. And I know that right now we're seeing a tariff war going on, which is basically we're implementing politics that go against free trade. So it's not gone to shared by the people, but instead in this case we have a situation where the state itself is reaping the benefits. But anyway, the negative effect is no free market. In a communist economy, the state owns and controls the means of production, eliminating the free market. So here I'm just pointing out how the state that doesn't need to own it in order to affect the way that the market actually goes. So we actually don't need a communist situation in order to promote this, because the end result is that it eliminates a free market. It impedes on that scenario. Even though here, in order to check this box off, we would have to have central planners rather than consumer demand to set prices and production goals, which often leads to poor economic performance. Here, the economic goals are set by the administrations that are at hand. And when we have these trade wars and these tariff wars, that's what's going on. They're controlling the markets. Next one is the lack of innovation and growth. Without private ownership or competition, individuals have little incentive to innovate, work more efficiently, or take entrepreneurial risk. This lack of motivation tends to lead to economic stagnation. And that's just it. Economic stagnation is the result of that thing. And so when you see inflation, you see the inflation, I guess, is not stagnation, but still, these effects, these negative effects on these markets are the things. Why do we not like communism? We don't like it because these negative effects, guys. So next we got widespread shortages and surpluses. The absence of the market price signals means central planners receive inaccurate feedback on consumer demand. This can often result in a surplus of some goods and a severe shortage of others, including basic necessities. Okay, so this is not about the actual, you need the central planners in order to have this happen, but the unstable market that results from this. Because you have shortages in one area of your markets and surpluses in the others. And I'd say if you have Wall Street and its investors and donors guiding some of these things, this could be the expected result, especially during a trade or tariff war. Next, we're going to have the misallocation of resources. And this blames it on without the price mechanism to guide production, resources are often allocated ineffectively, leading to wasteful projects and lower quality of life for citizens. So, in essence, you don't need the actual communism to change the allocated inefficiencies that are existing within our government, wasteful projects and lower quality of life for the citizens. I mean, we see that happening every day, especially when we're moving towards, SNAP benefits expiring, and we're sending money to other countries to help their cattle farmers, et cetera, et cetera. We see these effects on the economic parts of America without the actual communism involved. So next, we're going to have inequality and corruption. Despite the promise of equality, communist systems can often result in powerful ruling class that enjoys privileges while the general population endures poor living conditions. Again, another outcome of the economic situation from communism. When we say the word communism, we're not afraid of the communism, we're afraid of the effects of that communism. And can we look at what's going on in America and make any of this reflect to what's going on? Absolutely. Inequality and corruption, despite the promise of equality. Okay? The result is a more powerful ruling class and a more poor class. And every day we increase in this area more and more. So next we're going to move on to the political negatives of what this causes. The actual effects of communism that we should said to fear, not the communism itself. We have nothing to fear but fear itself, right? But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the political negatives. The authoritarian or totalitarian rule, everybody. We keep hearing these words thrown around. But that's just it. It doesn't have to be called a communist. Remember how this started? We don't have to check every box. The communist states have almost universally developed into a one-party dictatorship with absolute power. All independent political activity is banned, and dissent is not tolerated. Guys, we're creeping closer and closer every day. I get told if I'm not left, then I have to be right. If I'm not right, then I have to be left. Independent thought is very bad to most of the people that exist in this, because they say, well, you had to pick the lesser of two evils. It was one or the other. This is all brainwashing techniques used by these people to accomplish these goals, even if it's not done through actual communism. This is the negative effect. These are the things that we want to watch out for. This is the stuff that it gets criticism over, not who is in charge. Okay. Next on the list, we're going to have the suppression of individual freedoms. Under a communist rule, the personal liberties are subordinated to the state. This includes the suppression of freedom of speech and freedom of movement and the freedom of the press. And we've seen all of those things take place recently. Maybe not so much the freedom of movement, but then again, when you've got ICE agents that are stopping traffic in the streets and, throwing tear gas on little kids who are trick-or-treating, kind of makes you wonder. They're up for stop and frisk. So most people who support that movement are willing to give that right up. Also, you've got the freedom of the press, which is so recently been assaulted by the Pentagon, with those who are allowed passes to take oaths to their agenda or not. We know that freedom of speech is under attack in America, regardless of right or left. You could be standing on the left saying it's being attacked, and you could be standing on the right. And both actually agree on this. It's just each one wants to point the finger at the other and say, they're doing it, but I'm not. Meanwhile, this negative effect of communism is taking hold in America, and we don't need the communism to get it. You got the secret police and surveillance. These regimes often under secret police and mass surveillance to monitor and control the population, punishing those with independent thoughts or who voice criticism. There's a man sitting in jail right now for a Trump meme. Larry Bushner, is that his name? But that's a real thing. That's actually happening. And then if you look at the polarization in politics, one side calls the other side evil and terrorist and dictators. And it's very disgusting at this point. And we know that surveillance is the issue. I mean, why else would they be talking about Bitcoin, digital IDs? These things are being put into place, and we're not going, oh, hey, it's a communist society. But guess what? These are the negative effects of a communist society, why we're not supposed to like communism. Yet here they are without your communism. Next, we're going to move on to the human rights negatives. Mass killings and atrocities. Historically, communist regimes have been responsible for the deaths of tens of millions of people through political purges, executions, state-sponsored famines, and forced labor camps. Now, we can't check all of these boxes off, but we can definitely check off a few. We are definitely seeing political purges. People love that policy that support Trump and support the MAGA movement. Oh, we just love his foreign policy, which we've seen that under Obama. That's not a right or a left thing for everybody who thinks that these people are actually out here warring against one another while they slowly close in on these effects. And they tell you, oh, you need to be afraid of the communist, but they never tell you these are the effects you need to be afraid of. We see people being forced into camps, and actually there's an issue going on with immigration that nobody really wants to talk about. There's a few out there. Is if these immigrants are coming over legally, a lot of them through the system are being forced to these camps that end up where these farms are at. And so a lot of times they're being sold over into situations where they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And not only do they got to wait years to get here, but once they get here, they get taken advantage of. And these farmers and these industries that are involved in this H1 stuff, they have known this for years. And even Donald Trump himself said that he was guilty of taking advantage of the H1 situation. And so I'm not saying that's a forced labor camp, but when you take those people and put them in Alligator Alcatraz, you're forcing them into camps. And we've seen this actually happen. And I hate throwing this out there because some people really tune out when I say this, but the Nazi situation. Because at first we were just keeping them in camps over in Poland. And then, we see that reflect now. Oh, they're just, because they want to say they're being deported, but they're not being deported. They're being sent to a different country, to prison camps in different countries that are not related to where they're from. So if that's the case, that is definitely not deportation. And we see this camp situation happening, which under the Holocaust, they ended up finding out later, oh, they've been over there gassing them the whole time. Then the world wanted to speak up after they finally figured it out. But that's just it. You take away that due process. You start grabbing people off the street and shipping them here and shipping them there. There you go. You've got the negative effect of that communism that you're supposed to hate. Next on that list is going to be forced labor and persecution. Forced labor has been a common tool in the communist countries used to punish dissidents and developing infrastructure. These regimes have also systematically persecuted religious, ethnic, and social groups. So here we go again. Ties right back into what I was just talking about. This is systematically persecuting ethnic and social groups that come from other countries. They say, okay, they're all illegal, but that's not where we started. And the narrative is going to constantly morph and create these situations that give you that negative effect of the communist regimes that we're supposed to be afraid of. Next is lack of due process. Here we go, ties right back into the same movement. In these systems, legal protections are severely limited or non-existent. The state can arbitrarily imprison, torture, and execute people without fair trial. Even Obama did it. Indefinite detention, he put that in play, which means that he can hold you in prison without a charge. So yeah, he gave a lot of them due process compared to what we're doing now. But at the same time, he also opened up that door that's being used now that says, I don't have to give you due process. This is indefinite detention till I figure out what to do with you next. Indefinitely, like as in there is no set time that you have to figure it out. And even though there might not be public executions going on yet, look in other countries. Anybody see what happened in Brazil? This is scary stuff, guys. And we have to be careful because, like I said, it's the negative effect of these things that we need to be afraid of. We don't need these things to bring on those negative effects to society. Next, we're going to talk about societal and cultural negatives. The first is the erosion of civil society. Okay, communism has historically dismantled independent institutions and organizations such as churches, labor unions, political parties. I'll say that one again, political parties, leaving the population dependent on and controlled by the state. And it's interesting to me that you can take something that looks like, hey, we're trying to get people off of the state and get them when they're in a situation through economic hardship where they're dependent on the state. And that's what we got to be careful of, guys. Next, we got cultural and artistic censorship. Communist governments typically control and censor all forms of cultural and artistic expression to prevent the spread of subversive ideas. I don't know if we're there yet. Maybe we are there yet. Leave a comment in the comment section if you can connect this. But as this so stated when we first began, we don't need to check off every single one of these boxes to understand that we are reaping the negative benefits of what a communist society has to offer without the communism. Last, we've got the undermotivated workforce. Work without a profit, motive, or varied compensation for effort. Workers in a communist system often become undermotivated, leading to low production and shoddy production. It's hard to keep wanting to go to work when you can't afford, when you got to work half a day to cover the food that you're going to eat while you're at work that day. It's kind of hard to stay motivated, ain't it? There's a lot that can come from this, guys, and we need to be very, very careful. Low productivity and shoddy production also is something that we can see happen in the next generation that comes up as AI begins to take jobs, and people don't have reasons to live anymore because, well, you've got something to take care of all that stuff. Say that utopia that they're trying to feed us is true, which I highly doubt. But what do I know? I'm just a bad Christian. Thank you for joining me, everybody. I hope everybody has a great day and they've taken all this stuff into consideration. Until next time, love y'all.
Bad Christian.